Welcome to Becoming Spiritual, a podcast about the magic that surrounds us and has always been a part of us. I'm your host, Heather Dolan, a passionate seeker dedicated to bringing together beautiful humans who are doing amazing things in this world. Together, we will explore healing modalities and practical spiritual practices that can enrich your everyday life. We will also hear stories of awakenings, many from people in the corporate world who have broken out of the spiritual closet. Wherever you are in your journey, know you have found a community of open-hearted individuals committed to making themselves and our world a better place. Welcome home. Welcome back to Becoming Spiritual. This week, Natalie and I were joined by Jessica Joins. Jessica is a former global chief marketing officer turned bestselling author, spiritual coach, and international speaker who guides women in awakening to their true power and purpose. Through her transformational coaching, dynamic speaking engagements, and a thriving community platform, Jessica empowers women to master their spiritual journey, rise above fear, and transcend ego-based limitations. Her mission is to help women live with authenticity, clarity, and soul-aligned confidence. Isn't that so beautiful? We all need Jessica. In May 2021, Jessica launched her live coaching show, Soul Purpose. She also leads the Women's Purpose Community, a supportive space for executive women committed to deep self-discovery. With her work featured in Forbes, Marie Claire, Thrive Global, and Media Post, Jessica is pioneering a movement to bring spiritual awakening into the heart of corporate America. I really hope you enjoy this conversation where we just go really deep on purpose, where we talk about the masks in our everyday lives that we have to wear and how we can really find our authenticity within ourselves. So we hope you love the episode. Welcome back to Becoming Spiritual. I'm your host, Heather Dolan, and I'm here with my magical spiritual sidekick, Natalie Grace.
Hi.
And we are joined today by Jessica Joins. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for both of you having me on. I'm so excited to be with you.
Me too. So you heard a little bit about Jessica in our intro, but I mean, there's so many places to go being an author, a speaker, a spiritual executive coach, hosting your own podcast. So I'm guessing before all of these things, these titles, you were in the corporate world in a more, we would say, traditional corporate role as a chief marketing officer. And as you know from our initial conversation, and something that really resonated for me is that a big mission of this podcast is to help people who are in the corporate world connect or not be afraid to talk about spirituality. And I think it's the first time I've ever seen this on LinkedIn, seeing the spiritual executive coach out there. And obviously this is your business, so you're going to have it out there. But I'm so curious, if we can kind of go back to starting and you're in that corporate role, and what or how did this shift to the spiritual start? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people who this resonates with as well, and they're still in that spiritual closet, and it might help empower some of them to maybe not add spiritual to their LinkedIn profile yet, but start thinking about, why not me?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't until I left the corporate world that I felt comfortable doing that. And I had my own business, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And for me, it was just to be transparent about the way I coach and what I do. It is very hard for me to coach women and to help women and not acknowledge the presence of the soul or the universe or a higher power in their path. For me, I'd always been a bit of a spiritual seeker going back to my 20s. And it's just the way that I uncovered soul purpose in my own life, and the way that I finally dove in after, let me tell you, 2 decades of trying to figure it out. And the figure it out was how to be happy every day, how to get paid to be happy. And I couldn't figure that out in the corporate world. And I did, the career assessments. I did the Simon Sinek concentric circles. I did all the things. And what actually ended up working for me was looking at a lot of wisdom traditions, which were about Dharma, about, finding purpose, having a purpose as a soul, having a human experience. And so for me, using it as the title and the approach, I don't know how you look at it and look at these big life questions without answering that question, or at least understanding it's a variable in the equation. And it certainly was in my own journey.
I love that. That's so beautiful. So tell me, what was that like as you thought about, because I've got to think, again, there's some people out there thinking, I mean, well, I don't even have to think. I know, because I have conversations a lot as people are going through big life transitions, wondering how can I start planting seeds to maybe move towards my purpose, or figure out what is that thing that's going to drive me, that I can show up my authentic self and make money to be able to sustain myself, my family, etc.
Yeah. And I swear, I'm sure you've been noticing it too. Like, it's accelerating, like more and more, and not just women, right? You know, I only kind of work with women, but there is a true, I think, reckoning moment. People are awakening. The consciousness of the planet is shifting. And that shift is what it's looking like, or people are like, I can't do this anymore. I can't just be like a robot going through the motions. I can't. For me, the big aha was like, wow, this is like, you know, you have this life. It's such a sacred decision. What am I going to do every day? And I was choosing like complacency, and like, I wasn't even daring to choose love, like to truly do something I love. And so to answer your question, the message is simple, but we don't do it. It's what we're told as kids, but when we don't do it, because, you know, the ego, the fear, all of that lack and limitation and it's to do what you love. That is the answer. But we are so out of practice with asking ourselves, what do I truly want? What do I love? It's what I should do. It's all this think my way into it kind of energy based on the perception of this world is a really hard place. I better figure out what I'm good at and go do that, because scarcity is real, because limitation is real. And so I would say the answer is simple, but it's hard to do because it's a muscle most of us don't have. When I start working with them, a lot of them are like, I don't know what I love. I have no idea. I'm 40 years old, or I'm 50 years old. I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, well, let's get curious about it. You know, it's not too late to learn.
Yeah. I was having a conversation actually with someone recently, and they were telling me that they were working with a client in their 70s, and she was really hard pressed to almost feel like she was allowed to follow something that she was passionate about.
Yeah.
And that just made me so sad, thinking about all these people who have moved through their life doing what they were told from a young age. You get educated. If someone is that late in life, chances are they might not have had the opportunity to go to college, or if they did, then if they had children, they probably were told they needed to stay home to be a good parent, a good mother. And then everything was about the kids and self-sacrificing and all those things. And I just thought, oh my gosh, you know, it's so heartbreaking that someone needs to give you permission to find joy and live a life that feels true to you. But at the same time, thank goodness that there are people like you and other people in the world doing this work to help people find that and say, yes, if you need someone to give you permission, I'll be that person. I will be that person to say, yes, we can do that.
Yeah. But right there, the soul purpose journey is one way. It's not the only way, but to do the spiritual journey that we're all here to do. And the spiritual journey, back to your original question, that we're all here to do is to believe the truth in your heart more than the fear in your mind. To believe, you know, your soul more than the ego. You know, if we were doing Christian studies, it would be to, you know, believe in God or higher power more than, you know, they would call it the devil or whatever, you know, but it's all the same thing. It's to choose love over fear. And to choose love over fear, again, you believe that your dreams are in your heart because they're true and they're real and they're possible. You don't listen to that voice of fear and doubt in your mind, or that comes at you through other people's egos. And that is the spiritual journey right there. And I knew when I was stepping into the soul purpose journey, I'm like, oh, this is like the embodied living moment to moment choice of the spiritual journey that we're all doing in different ways.
Yeah. And to your point, when you were talking just a minute ago about how spirituality is out there in the mainstream, the New York Times article that came out on Easter about believing, and a year-long project around believing in spirituality, and people are, as you said, seeking. They're not satisfied, especially since the pandemic. And while there was a mass exodus from churches and organized religion, now people are realizing, hey, there's actually something to that, where if you can get rid of kind of the dogma of you have to do it this way, there's a lot of really beautiful things about, what religious institutions or churches or whatever, community. There's people who are there to help support you, but how can you now make that work this day and age without some of those restrictions, where people can be who they, want to be, believe in what they want to believe. And it's really interesting talking about this, because my sister and I actually were just home last week to see our mom to celebrate her 70th birthday. And we went to a Monday, Thursday service at our church. It was very small. And my mom said we used to go to this. I didn't remember, but church growing up was a really big part of our lives. And my sister and I were really reflecting on, when we were there, just all the beautiful memories we had, especially of the community and the people who would help care for us and, knew a lot about us and would ask about, just different things, schools, sports, whatever. And we both said, gosh, wouldn't it be great to take like all of those great parts, but not have, as we were sitting there and there were some songs or responses or prayers or whatever, I was like, I'm not saying those words. I'm like, those are not words I'm going to utter, because my words have a lot of power. And there's certain things in here. I'm not going to say I'm a sinner because I was born, coming in here with sin, and now I have to work on forgiveness my whole life. Like, I'm not going to say that. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and let that pass by. But I tried to really think about, and I think that's what this article said. And I think what it's interesting is thinking about the good parts, which is that community, which I think leads well into the community that you've created. But before we jump into your community, I'd love to hear, what did that trajectory look like for you being in corporate America? Let's just say corporate America, corporate role, having this seeking journey, which was not just one day you popped up and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to quit my job and go do spiritual stuff. What was that, kind of planting those seeds? Was it planting seeds to say, okay, I'm going to set myself up for success if I leave my job? Is it just something got to a point where you're like, okay, it's time to go and do this full time? What was that like? What was that journey like?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a very long journey. It's what I got guided to turn into a book, because I knew that so many people were struggling with the same kind of questions and not having the answers. And for me, I knew when I took my very first job in advertising out of college, and I had panic attacks in the first year, that like something was wrong, but I thought that something was wrong with me. I didn't realize, and now I look at like that was my soul trying to wake me up and go like, this deal, like what you're signed up for and about to embark upon until like retire and die and then be happy, is not for you. And I was resisting that. And so for 2 decades, I kept trying to figure it out. And the figure it out was like, how can I get paid to be happy? I mean, that was really like the question. I did not have the vocabulary for purpose or any of these kinds of things. I just knew that there was a longing, that something was missing, and that I was unhappy. And I knew it was generally like this work thing. But again, I kept thinking something was wrong with me, because what I was feeling was so in contrast to the paradigm, that we live in. And so what that looked like for a long time was me, moving from company to company, thinking if it was a different company, I could be happier there, that there was something wrong with that. And as I talk about in my book, when I was 35 and laid off, I took a year-long sabbatical and bought a one-way ticket to Vietnam and traveled for a year. And so that was in 2011. And when I started to like wake up to this notion of purpose, more or less, and started to feel like this urgency to somehow make a change. But I still didn't have the vocabulary. And like I said, the tools that were out there were not solving it for me. They were not providing the direction or the insight into the question. So finally, like what happened, I'm at the top of the corporate game. I'm global CMO of a really massive tech company. This is now cut, a few years after that. And I think what happened for me is I just was in enough pain with it. I mean, I was falling apart emotionally, mentally, physically, all the things on all the fronts. So I had that going on, that I was just willing to do something daring, to do something, I did not have a plan. So when I kind of woke up to, wow, I see that I've been doing it all wrong. I've been looking out there to solve something I can only solve within here. And I did have like a moment of clarity and aha and awakening. I quit my job. I transitioned for 6 months and I left without a plan. The plan was like, I'm going to figure out who I want to be when I grow up, right? Like I'm going to figure this purpose thing out. And that was 2016. And then I embarked on what is, I have in my book, which is like a spiritual approach to uncovering purpose. And I was doing all the lessons that are in there, which are based on ancient wisdom traditions, but put in like a practical bite-sized way to, for example, trust the truth in your heart, to start to ask yourself what you really want, but take a surrendered approach to manifestation rather than I have to figure it all out. Now I got to muscle it to make it happen. And what that revealed to me, in a very circuitous, like hilarious fashion, eventually led to, now what I'm doing today, which is, coaching and the creation of the women's purpose community.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I remember you saying to me, I had written it down because I loved it, where you said pain is the portal to awakening.
Yeah. I mean, it was for me, it's just like, I just knew, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I know that. I don't know what's next, but I know I can't keep doing this. And that was all I did it with. Like, people are always like, so how did you do it? Like, what was your plan? I'm like, I had no plan.
Yeah.
Now my personality inherent, like I'm not averse to risk. So I had that going for me, but that was about it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. So, and here we are.
Here we are. And then, so the book was first.
Yeah.
The journey, the work was first.
Yeah.
And then
the
you were
work
so
was
kind
first.
as to put it all into a book, Dare to Believe, so that we could all learn from you and your journey. So thank you for that.
No, I felt, what it was? I'll tell you a really funny story. I felt like I had figured something out. Like it's a very niche audience who this book is for, because it's people that like grew up in the era of law of attraction and, respond to all these teachings, but they're still like, but what do I do every day? So it was like for those people that I took it and I was like, okay, step by step, like this is how we take all those esoteric principles, but make it practical in terms of something that you can wrap your hands around and do. So at first it was only a course book. And then one of my family members was like, well, it's kind of boring. And I was like, maybe you should put your story in it. I was like, oh, okay. I'll add some of my story into it, And I mean, that was how it came about. But I felt like I had to put something out that I had, sort of figured out like for this kind of specific audience. And that was it. Yeah.
And so who do you find, as you wrote the book and have had conversations, do people use it as like a day-to-day, cover to cover? I'm going to take all these practices. I know you said it's bite-sized, which is wonderful.
Yes. Yeah, it literally is like a course book. I've taught it as an online course even. I'm teaching it within my community right now because we have a lot of new members this year. It very much is that, along with some of my story.
Okay.
Yeah.
And something that I read about the community, because it's just so beautiful. I just want to read this because the Women's Purpose Community, I mean, just the name is beautiful, but I feel like everyone's going to resonate with this. Life asks so much of us: to lead, to nurture, to show up fully in every role we play. But even the strongest among us aren't meant to carry it all alone. Community is what sustains us. It's where we find reflection, wisdom, and the reminder that we don't have to figure everything out on our own. In the Women's Purpose Community, we believe in the power of walking this path together, where deep conversations replace isolation, where vulnerability is met with understanding, and where transformation happens through connection. Oh my gosh, I just love that so much, because I feel like everyone's like, yes, I need that. Like, how do I find that? So tell us about the Women's Purpose Community and how that came about, because it's just so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to join us anytime, Heather. Either of you. We have a retreat in October here in Southern California.
I want to hear about that.
You can come on out, do a trip. It was a happy accident. So this is like, I always say, like, learn from my own, like, I was practicing the principles in my book, which was like every day holding a vision of what I thought I truly loved, saying, show me the way, show me the way. I never had creating a community on my vision board. Never. Okay. What I did have a vision for back in 2017 was doing a retreat for the type of women I serve, which are very kind of high-powered women. And it was, the vision I had was bring them in a room, but don't let anyone introduce themselves by like what they do or where they work. Like instead by like who they are. And in 2018, I started with retreats. I launched the Woman's Purpose Retreat. And I was cruising along, doing retreats, doing coaching, and then COVID hit. And no in-person retreats. Brought it all online, and just it sparked. It gave me the inspiration and the idea. And again, like, one of the things I really believe when it comes to purpose is just honor the true passion, the frequency of passion you have. So in full transparency, I never have had a passion to create community. I had a passion to bring this awakening, the thing that we're talking about, to help women shift their consciousness, particularly via kind of exiting the matrix, doing what you love, if you will. And I wanted to bring that to more women. The happy accident, the happy benefit is like, it's become a community that exceeds anything I ever have imagined or have ever been a part of myself. And I think it's because it's just these women coming together, being very vulnerable, very real. It's still like a lot of the women don't even know what one another do for work. And they're all in these like really massive jobs, but women that want to do the work of self-discovery and do it together.
That's so great. And so, and of course, happy accident, universe.
Yes.
Doing all this stuff for you, setting you up.
Yeah.
The universe knew this is what you were going to do. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what that experience looks like and who it's for, because I think from a coaching perspective, working with other C-level executive women like yourself. So, kind of a mirror of, this is probably what you could have used when you were trying to go through this journey. And so what does that look like for someone if they're going to come into the community?
It's definitely shifted. It started very much like I would say, like I created it for my former self. But then it's like a lot of women have come in, and then as being a part of it, some of them have left the corporate world, and then they've decided they want to go into this kind of work that you and I do, or, these kinds of things. So that for sure has happened. And then I realized too, like I had to expand my own thinking a bit and be open again to like who the universe was bringing in. So the universe, at first it was a little bit more rigid, very just women, certain very senior role, this kind of a thing. And that was my own limited thinking too, but also wanting to make sure I created like a real safe space for these women. But we've had a lot of women that are doing coaching and doing things like I do that want to be a part of it because they want to focus not, to be there to, find business, because they want to focus on their own work, and they're in the service business and have no place that they come that is just for them. Mm-hmm. So we have now like a handful of coaches that are there as members, not to coach. And then we've gone a little bit, I'll call it, younger women that are not in as much of like such the senior roles, still pretty senior, not entry level, but we flexed on that a little bit too. And again, they were coming to the door. And so I finally like listened to that. And it's about women that want to do the work. That's what it is. It's not necessarily for women that need it, being in the lifelong journey of self-discovery, but women that want it. So it's really that kind of group of women, more or less, from all over the country. And it's grown completely, almost organically and by word of mouth. Even though I'm a former marketer, I haven't really done much marketing in a concerted way around it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love what you said about the women who are coaches, because I'd love to talk about this because I have a really, I think, interesting perspective that sometimes people don't understand. But women who are coaches that are there. So it's like the healers need healing too. Yeah. Safe space. Mm-hmm. But this idea that it's not competitive. It's not someone's going to come into this competition. I think that's where spirituality, at least, has been a big part of my journey the last few years in growing the work I do by day in growing my community, even in my day job, something I tell them all the time is I want to get rid of the word competition because it just separates. That's all it's meant to do. It's ego driven. It separates. It does not bring us together. And I would say my community that I've created, which has over 250 alumni and 20 current members. And again, this is in my day job and my corporate role, but it's always surprising to me when people are caught off guard when I tell them that there are going to be people that do exactly what you do from a job perspective, from a title, could be in the same industry, might be different. And they're going to be looking at some of the same jobs that you are, but we're going to support each other. And you're going to be sharing with them and cheering them on. And whoever is meant to get that role is going to get it because that is the role that is meant for them. And that just means that the universe is making space for whatever is meant for you to come in. And all of a sudden, when I say that, it's like the light bulb goes off and it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But it's like, it's not like, this is not rocket science. It's not a new concept, but it's not something that people, I think, talk about a lot. And so I talk about you have to be able to pay it forward before you can expect something. And it's just the universal law. Like we have to give. Like giving is going to bring so much more abundance, and doing it from a place where it's authentic. And it takes a little bit to unwind some of that perception around, wait, this is my competitor. Like we could be 2 of 2 finalists for a really big, high paying job. And it's like, you could. Yeah. And I've had people who have gone out to drinks or dinner after they both finished their final interviews with the CEO and talked about it. And I mean, what's more beautiful than that? Instead of like, oh my gosh, what if they get the job over me? I just love, kind of that spark that you have within your community too, because people could easily say, wait, they could take business from me if they're doing coaching as well. But I'm just curious how you've positioned that over the years, or when you first started, and how it's evolved. Because I know for me, it was kind of something I talked about, but not really front and center. Now it's like front and center, and people are like, how beautiful. And it resonates. And I'm like, I'm going to keep attracting the people that this resonates for. And if it doesn't, that's okay. They're not going to be, people that are going to be part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're saying. And, it's the abundance mindset. We're programmed into the scarcity mindset. So it's so much to unravel. And then people have experienced scarcity because it's the manifestation of the collective consciousness. So it's not that it doesn't exist, but you can tap out of it when you can bend reality, when you choose to believe different, right? Like that's the whole key to unlocking it. For me, that's been it's been my own issue I've had to work on, hands down, like for me personally. But women coming in, more at times it's just been like, oh, wow, is someone on my team going to be, because they're sharing such vulnerable stuff. So it was more like that safe space, and that, again, this was my limited thinking, that only women that are in those big corporate roles would be able to relate one another because they're going through the same thing. And then how are they going to, so it was more my brain not understanding how that would all work. But hello, like when you're talking about focusing on shifting your consciousness and these big topics, like everyone can relate, we can find conversation to be had and even learn from one another's different experiences. So it was more just, how would women come in that have not worked in the corporate world? Like, how would that work was more of the thing. Yeah.
And even what you said, that a lot of these women don't even know what they do. That's so beautiful, that it's not about this title that we give ourselves and present ourselves with, but it's no matter what I'm doing, and I might have different life experience, might be younger, I might be older than other people, but that there's this common ground of everyone wanting to be here to support each other and do the work. Yeah. And so all that other stuff falls away. And it's just, I love that, because it's that identity shift of, okay, I can take this mask off and just do what I need to do for myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. So tell me a little bit about, so you do retreats, and so you do one retreat a year.
Yes. Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. The retreat, interestingly, it stayed really pure to what it originally was. We're coming on our 8th year now of having, since it's been retreats, and it's a 2.5-day event. It's still like the same principles. Women come in, don't identify, but like, this is my title and where I work, and start exchanging business cards and all of this. But usually there's a theme or a topic. And a lot of the women will go up and tell their 5-minute vulnerable story related to whatever that theme or topic was. Last year, the theme was self-love. So that was pretty deep. And yeah, we don't bring in outside teachers other than for like specialty areas like yoga, meditation. We have such incredible women that are a part of this community that we draw from within. So we don't have the energy of like women coming in and out and like, oh, you're the teacher. So the theory is like everyone's a teacher and a student. So every year, some of the women that are members like take on a teaching role, and we all work together on like a really beautiful program, connected to what the theme is. Spirit shows me what the theme is each year. I don't even know yet for this year, and we're almost sold out. Like, just FYI, I don't even have a theme yet or an agenda on the website, and we have
That's amazing.
6 spots left. Yeah. Because it's just such a intimate, sacred kind of event. It's always an opportunity for these women to restore. And this is what we'll bring in outside practitioners, not teachers, but like we'll bring in a lot of wellness and these kinds of things as well. And at this point too, it's a 90% are community members, and then it's an opportunity they can bring in guests or friends. But they're also excited to see each other because it's the one time a year everyone gets together after being on Zoom together all year long. So there's that going for it.
Yeah, it's like a mini reunion too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what's something that you're currently either working on or exploring, given the moment that we're in right now in time? I know people are really drawing on a lot of practices, and just, I'm curious, what are you working on?
Well, it's so interesting because I came into this year with a few like goals, if you will, or intentions. One was that I was going to travel and do a lot more speaking than I did last year because it's one of my passions. The other was for the community that we're going to do a lot more local in-person events like dinners and these kinds of things. And then January 7th, I got evacuated for the fires. So, and as I said, I just moved home, a few days ago. Yeah. So that threw a wrench in everything. So the real lesson was like my plans versus like surrendering to what is. So for me, spiritually speaking, it's really been in this like journey of surrendering attachment to everything like I was attached to that I constituted home, coming to find home as a within state, like no matter what, and stay grounded in that peace and in that trust. So all of those kinds of things, like, we had dinners, we had this plan all went away. I'm going to New York at the end of May to speak at something. So that's great. But I just had to really like let go of all of that. And where I've been right now, it kind of reminds me at the beginning of my journey when I was like, officially on the soul purpose journey in 2016, 2017. I've just been like, well, show me the way, show me what's next. And so I'm very open to what that is. Before all of this in last November, I had started working on another book. I'm really passionate about the consciousness shift that's happening on the planet. I feel the physical vibration of energy. And so I get a lot of data and information about that and what's happening during this time of, as Eckhart Tolle talks about, awakening to a new earth. And I had started writing some things about that, but that took a back burner for now as well. So we shall see. I have no idea. And I don't think that's a bad thing, stepping into the unknown so I can be shown.
Yeah. A blank page ready to be written.
Yes.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, Jessica's in Malibu area. And so obviously just heartbreaking at the loss and devastation. But I've got to think it's hard to wrap your mind around the why me, and if you've been doing this work for a while and you kind of realize there are going to be moments that might take us into maybe more of a dark night or some kind of situation that's really going to have us evaluate what we're doing currently. What is our life like? It's just interesting seeing a lot of people having different thoughts around that. And still doesn't mean it's not painful. Doesn't mean, again, going to that pain is the portal of kind of this, what are you going to come out the other side? It sounds like it could be, an exciting journey to see, what is this all going to lead to?
Yeah. And I think there's always a higher perspective to be had and a personal one. I didn't lose anything, right? So I was displaced. That has been challenging, but it's always a personal one. But for me personally, I always try to look at the higher perspective and my, like what is happening, for me, but always try to look at the consciousness, the awareness behind the story, and really witnessing and looking for the gifts in any moment. I use the word God, but you could use higher power, universe, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. But, the universe's will or God's will is what's happening right now. Like that for me has always been something that has rang true for me. So like, what is the gift in that? When I'm ready to receive it, does it mean you bypass feelings or doing any of the healing work that might come up?
Yeah. Natalie, I'm curious. I saw you taking some notes.
Oh, yeah. I've been so intrigued listening to your story, Jessica. I've seen a lot of your journey to finding purpose mirrored in mine, but I feel like, I don't want to say like steps behind or forward, but I've come from a different place. I was working in government. I was on a journey myself, but I was always resistant to taking on more responsibility. I was working in tech as well. I was in like quite a respected position there, working on some really big projects. And my boss came to me one day at age like 34 or something saying, who do you want to be when you grow up? So that question was like mirrored back to me from my own leadership. And I was like, I don't know. So I let everything go in a similar way to go on my journey. And I'm still feeling, to be very honest with you, in that spirit of vulnerability that you were talking about earlier, that you lean into on the retreats. Still lost. I've done so much work. I've been exploring. I love exploring the wisdom traditions. I've been immersed in finding purpose. But I feel like there's also, perhaps, I wouldn't call it a trap. I'm really intrigued by very driven, successful people, especially women, who seem to have it all together, but they're looking for purpose in this like structured way, whereas I feel like it's very messy. So yeah, I'm just really intrigued to hear if you have any perspective, what you've learned from the women you work with who have like been able to create that structure and that vision for themselves to get to a particular position and then find like that there's still something missing that I'm yet to discover, versus someone who's like, let's blow it all up and be like, oh no, now how do I put everything together? That's where I'm at. So I'm like, I'm still looking for my purpose, and how do I find it?
Yeah, you stop trying to find it. And what I often say into a lot of women, it's really an energy play. It's really a frequency play. So the idea that I have to have the vision before the vision can even come to me, or that once I do, I have to figure out how to put it all together, that's still ego energy. That's still that fear, it's not going to happen energy, right? And that's where meditation and these practices are so important, that you can really start to witness the insidiousness of the fear and how it's trying to hijack your purpose journey. Because it's really about holding a frequency of resonance, so that you can hold the moment to moment honoring of resonance and surrender the rest. Like, you will magnetize to you. That's how the universe plays with you. The universe cannot play with you if you're in that fear, worry, doubt, and limitation. You're blocking. So what I'll often say to women that even think like, they're like, I don't know what I truly love, and they keep getting hung up, and I'm like, pick the thing you most love today. Okay. Now write a little vision around that for this simple exercise I'm going to say next, and hold the frequency of joy and excitement in that. You being in that vibration, doesn't even matter the literal story you've attached. You holding that vibration, the thing that most excites you, as you best know yourself now, starts to invoke and inspire the universe to come and play with you. So now you're dancing in the resonance. And it starts co-creating. It brings you something. You say yes or no, or you act on it or you don't. And you're in that sacred dance where all of a sudden you're living your purpose. Now, when you're spending days in fear, worry, and doubt, you are again blocking. So it's about, how do I hold the resonance of hope, of joy, of daring to believe, whatever it is around my purpose, and let the universe show it to me. Let the universe actually manifest it for me. I just take inspired action on like the little directions it's giving me here and there, and trust in those, and trust that it's leading somewhere good, because I'm honoring my heart. I'm holding this frequency in my heart.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's really hard. That's what I say. It's like our ego is so insidious, and it wants to grip on it, wants to control it. I have so many women, like, they have an incredible vision. They know it's the vision, and then it's delaying the manifestation. Because again, it's up to me, the false self, I have to figure it out and put it all together, rather than every day, universe, show me the way. and believing that when you've done that, the universe is responding. So those signs, those synchronicities, those nudges you're getting, you're supposed to act upon them and let go of, well, where's this going? How is this going? How is this all going to come together? Let go of that and be in blind faith and trust.
Yeah.
It's hard. But the Earth School is a school of faith and trust, you know?
Yeah.
You get cut off from source when you're put in the body. You have amnesia. You know what I mean? Like you don't remember, like that's what this school is. And to know that universe, it's a very highly intelligent, conscious, creating energy that wants to work with you, but you got to be in the vibration that it plays in and it speaks in order to invoke that and to play with that, to create the life of your dreams.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you.
Sure. I'm happy to. Yeah.
So I'm curious with the women that are in the community doing this work, how they are bringing spirituality to be a superpower in their day to day, because I think that's how we're going to change how work works, because we know it doesn't work for most of us. It works for a very small few. So I'm curious how women have shared within the community just how they've been able to bring their spirituality to their day-to-day lives. If they're staying in corporate roles, are there a lot of people that end up deciding to pivot and do something completely different because they're like, I'm just not fulfilled, and I realized I've just been pursuing what I was told I should pursue?
Yeah. I mean, definitely a lot sometimes come to Women's Purpose Community, and it is a year-long membership, but most stay on much longer than that. We have women that have been to every retreat since 2018 and a part of the community since it started in 2021, you know? So we have that going on. I will say a lot of them, when they come, it's like, I know I'm not totally happy in this corporate job. There's something like appealing to me here, but so some make a shift, some don't by any means. Some really feel that they're happy in what they're doing, or they feel like they're making a change and all of that. And I'll say within the community, we're not necessarily talking about how to take it to corporate world. It's really the change that will save the world is a personal one. So we're really focusing on helping women awaken to their true self. Like that's kind of what we do. And as you know, like them just making that shift in their own consciousness has a, domino effect of repercussions and how they're showing up, how they're leading, how they're at home with their families or in jobs. But in more specific and tangible ways, I know, though I don't know, maybe they would connect the dots. I would hope so. Like there are some women in some pretty powerful roles, like they now have, regular meditation at their companies. I'm doing a talk for one of them at the end of May, a virtual meditation and a talk, right? Or they're bringing in even things like Kundalini and sound healing, and they're just kind of bringing in these different practices under the wellness lens into their corporate environments. I think too, what I've noticed too, the main thing, and I was speaking at a conference about this last year, is not like shaming their own intuition. So intuition is the soul, like that's your soul sense. Sure. And the fact that it's been taught like, you're creator of this, I do notice, and I think this is like a really powerful thing. Like, no, my intuition is telling me that. And owning it as of equal value as the data, So that I think is a really powerful thing. And then certain values, like, again, back on like some of the more, divine feminine traits, owning that they're an empathetic leader, or owning some of these like conscious leadership practices. And again, without shame, but being like, no, this is who I am and I'm proud of it. And I can actually be powerful and this as well.
Yeah. The end. And also that it's not something that someone's coming in and telling me, hey, I'm this, and it's kind of buzzy or a hashtag and like, okay, I'm going to jump on this train now, but really authentically discovering like, yeah, our intuition's a superpower. Like that's what I feel like there's so many things that are superpowered, especially for women that, we're taught not to really use and bring it into our day to day and keep them separate. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's like a really long history of that.
Mm-hmm. That sounds so transformative. And I'm really curious, Jessica, based on the insight you're getting around these times and where we're shifting to, the shift in consciousness, the shift in vibration towards this new earth. It probably is a great time for you to actually explain that if you can, just for the listeners who might not be familiar with that term and that concept. But also, do you have any insight around where that kind of amazing superpower of intuition is leading us, and if it's going to become more prominent, especially in, say, like corporate structures, for instance, but just also in leadership and in where we're heading.
I'll start with the latter. I'm not sure where it's heading with leadership in corporate. I don't know. I think a lot is going to be dismantled. Like, that's my gut. I don't know how. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know. What I do know, and I would just say, anyone listening, like, take what resonates, leave behind what doesn't. Always, like, trust your own truth, is that we are going through a consciousness shift. And all intuition means I'm more in contact with my soul. And every master teacher, every religion, they've said it in different ways, different stories, different blah, 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 but they've all said the same thing. Like, hey, you're here to awaken. What does awaken mean? You're here to learn how to embody your soul light in this physical form. When you're up there in the realm of bright light, just flying around as spirit, it's easy. You feel interconnectedness. You feel oneness. You feel love. It's really hard to do in this density, in this like heavy, dense body, to do that. The lesson here is to learn to do that. They've all said it. They've all said the same thing. They've all said there will come a time where there's going to be a massive evolutionary shift, consciousness shift, a new earth that's going to be born. And what's been shown to me, and I do receive a lot of messages, is like, that time is now. Is it overnight? No. But like, we are in it in a way that we've never been before on this planet. It's interesting for me. I read the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, which I think is probably the most modern day version of it. You can, again, find these messages in any, historical, religious literature. It's all there everywhere that you would look or read it. It's just told differently. And I read it when it came out back in like 2009, 2010. I was just like, oh, this is cool. I did not understand it.
So funny. I think I picked it up too. And now, I feel like now I need to go back and look at it, because I think I was like, I don't even know what he's talking about here. Like, having that vocabulary, it was like, wait, what is this?
Yeah. And then in 2017, I had what I call like a white light awakening moment. And ever since then, like, I feel energy. So I feel these energies and the shifts that are happening, more or less. And started receiving messages about it. And I got guided to go back and read that book. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, the new age, the new age talk about, that's what they're talking about. The Mayans, the end of the calendar, this golden era of consciousness, this age of Aquarius, this, whatever you want. They're all talking about this time that will come where we just go through natural progression of evolution, as we are always meant to as a planet, where just the energy of the planet starts to shift as evolution does. And we're going to become more aware, more awake, more conscious. But, nothing happens overnight. And what I will say for anyone that is listening or watching and looking around the world right now, and they're like, this isn't an awakening, I would say this is exactly what awakening looks like. So part of it is this collective dark night of the soul. So all the darkness, all the things that don't work, all the beliefs and limitation, all the polarity, all the duality, all the you don't just zap it away. It's brought up by the roots into the light to be seen, to be something done about. I know not a lot doesn't look like it's being done right now, but it will. Like, we are in the motion of that.
Amazing. Sure. Exciting times.
Yeah. I mean, difficult ones though too. It's like, but again, I'll say again, like, take what resonates, leave behind what doesn't. When I used to hear people talk about this before I started really feeling it, like what I feel now, I can't deny. I was like, what are they talking about? Okay, it sounds cool, but I don't think so. So
that's not
trust your own path more than what I say. Yeah.
I'm curious if you're open to talking about, you mentioned a white light moment where then you get messages and experience things differently. Can you share a little bit about what that was?
Absolutely. I was still living in New York City at the time. So this is 2017. I had left my job, a year and a half prior. At that time, I was getting guided. I started meditating in my mid-20s, but at this time I was getting guided to meditate quite a lot, like 1-2 hours a day. Like, it was just this like biological thing. I just had to be in meditation, And August 2017, I had a moment where I literally felt like surge of energy. And I mean, like, I could touch it, like physical vibration, electromagnetic, whatever you want to call it, coming through me. And I felt like I left my body for a second. And when I did, I saw what I thought were angels around me, which I will say was hilarious at the time. I was very invested in being a yogi. I'd never given a thought to an angel in my whole life. And then after that, I received some messages at that moment that I was waking up to feeling energy. I was going through a major shift in my life. But I will tell you, I thought I lost my mind. I thought like I was crazy. And then I thought, no, I wasn't. I was having some cool metaphysical experience. So I was in this toggling for a good year between something is happening, something shifting in me, to I'm crazy, I'm losing my mind, to then I thought I was like John Travolta in that movie Phenomenon. Oh no, I'm having a brain tumor, to the point where I went and got an MRI. Not even kidding. I was like, wow, what's happening? And so I'm jumping over a lot of steps because it was like a very disorienting time.
And were you kind of going through this, you're like alone, like not telling people? Because you're like, I can't, like, who
there
can
was some
I share
good
this with?
Close friends that I was able to share with that I knew like that really were like, you're not crazy. I think you're going through something incredible, you know? And what I thought, like the big thing I thought was like, oh, I'm an energy healer. I'm waking up to that. Like I'm feeling it. That's what's happening. And it is in part true. I do energy healing today, and I got guided to learn Reiki and things during that time. But what really happened is I was feeling what I will call this ascension energy that is helping to shift the planet, because there's a lot I need to learn about that's connected to my path, if you will. So that's a little bit of the short and sweet version of it. But what happened is that it awakened something in me. I anchored in more of my soul light, and all of us, I'm not unique or special in that. Like the more you start to anchor to your light body, your soul, you can feel energy. You are connected to those soul senses. So you feel the messages of your own consciousness, of your own soul. It's just easier to do, and we all have the capacity to do it. So we had a teacher come into the community last month to teach everyone about intuition. At one of our retreats last year, I brought in a woman who's a really well-known channeler to, teach, because it's, again, these are not special, unique gifts. They're gifts we all have access to the more we're in touch with our own soul senses.
For sure. And I love that most of the guests that we've recorded episodes all say the same thing. Like it's so beautiful where it's, you don't need me to do this. If you want to build some confidence, if you need to get information, of course it's great, doing Reiki and being certified. Of course, it's always great for someone to work on you. Again, healing the healer. So bringing that in, but at the same time, I love that people who really are in this authentic space, it's not about, I need you to keep coming back to me so I can keep paying my bills. It's like, you can learn to do this because it's all our right. It's all our gifts. It's who we are under, the skin and body and all these things. So
yeah. And I think that's a part of the shift that's happening right now too. If it was in some of the religious traditions, you need the pastor, the preacher, right? A lot of it, you need the guru, and like, it's very disempowering in some ways. It creates another layer of separation, to your point, right? And I think that awakening, I see it happening a lot right now too.
Yeah.
We all have it within.
That awakening of our own powers, of our own gifts, of our own wisdom. It's so powerful.
Yes. Yeah. It was really interesting for me, and it still happens today. So always been like spiritual seeker, like read the books, just really got into it in my 20s. And what was really interesting is I believed in certain things as ideas, like law of manifestation or, these things. And what has happened through this experience is I have these, like, I know it from within. It's like a cellular memory that activates, or sometimes I'm shown in my own mind, like actually how it works and it comes together. But it's just a way of showing me, like, I didn't even need those books. You come to know all of it from within too, which I think is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're your own Google and ChatGPT and all the things. Like we have it all in. We just, the biggest issue is we don't give ourselves the space and time to actually think about, who am I? Like, what are all of these things? And like you talking about doing a 1 to 2 hour meditation, like I can only imagine, what that reveals when you do that time and time again. And it's funny, we just did an episode on meditation, and it's, I say, look, if it starts out 5 minutes is all you've got, certainly better than not doing it, because hopefully you do get into that yearning for it where you're like, oh my gosh, I need this in my life. And then you start spending a little bit more time and you see how much you can learn about yourself and gifts, and, whether that's your intuition sparking a little bit more and you start to get messages and, things happening. It's such an amazing unfolding, but we just have to give ourselves, for lack of a better word, the permission to say like, yes, I can do that. I can spend 2 hours in meditation if that's what I choose to do. Beautiful.
I love that. And I love that advice that you give to people. I think that's really beautiful too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I was just, and I think this is, again, where spirituality, or just not even having that label, but just tapping into what I know to be true and what I want to help activate in people, is giving them even just this little sneak peek of, if you allow yourself that time and space, take a little bit of break, especially because most people I'm talking to, the majority, are going through a big transition from a career perspective. And so before you just rush to what's next, even the conversation I had with someone today was, chances are this happened because there's something else you're meant to do. And it's just going to get more and more uncomfortable if you don't start moving towards what that is. So do yourself a favor. Just
You're
take a little
absolutely
time.
right. You're so right in that. Yeah. And I can totally feel too, like you have such a strong intuition. I mean, I think you're aware of that, but like, yeah. It's funny because now in coaching too, what I didn't realize before this happened, and now I'm very aware of it, was how much I was just coaching from my intuition, right?
All the time.
Pretty powerful.
So powerful. And I've had a lot of women ask me recently, because we also do, on the other side of the work we do from a transition perspective, executive coaching in a more traditional way. And what's your opinion? Someone who's been an executive who has a lot of experience, they've been coaching people and helping people, and I'm sure following their intuition and doing all the things. But again, we've been told we need a label to become a coach. And so I need a certification. I've got to go through this program. What do you think? And, for so many, I think you have to follow what's going to work for you, what's right for you, because chances are you're already doing this work. And, people ask me all the time, can you be my coach? And I'm like, no, I don't have the bandwidth for that, nor do no, I don't have any kind of structure. I'm just going to help you because this is what I want to do. But I'm curious for you stepping into that spiritual executive coaching, because we all know there's so much imposter syndrome. And what was that like for you moving into this spiritual coaching?
Yeah. And I had different names for it at first. Trust me. I mean, it was like whole self coach. I had holistic executive, I think, at one point. And then the one thing I decided, and pretty early on, and it's where I started, I was, getting coaching going through companies, and I quit that within a year. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going directly to women. If they want to then go and ask for budget through their company, fine, because I was having to tone down what I was saying. And I didn't feel good about that. And a lot of them would be like, no, just, say this in the contract, but we're going to, and I was like, you know what? I don't know. I don't really, I had mixed feelings about it because I really wanted to help them. But at the same time, I didn't want to have to play the corporate game anymore, So for me, it's a big difference. I don't have any companies that are paying for me for coaching. Women are paying me out of their pocket. If they're able to get it funded on their own, great. That's the way I went about it. But yeah, it took me a while to start calling it spiritual executive coach, for sure. Took me a while.
Yeah, because I think I've seen some different programs of, well, as you know, there's lots of people out there who are amazing spiritual teachers, and then they have their programs that you can go through. And I look at them and I think, it doesn't resonate. And then to think I have to go through some 2-year journey or something to then do what they're, I would hope that they're probably telling me to follow my intuition of how I'm going to do something, but they still have kind of their playbook, I would say, in terms of, join my certification and then you'll be a spiritual, life coach or whatever that might be. And I think, again, this is that paradigm shift of the structure. It's just going to take a while, I think, for a lot of people to have confidence in that trust, which going back to that trust of, I can do this work. I don't need a piece of paper that tells me, why are we giving so much power to paper?
To say,
I
never did a certification, to be clear.
Right. Yeah. To do this work, it's like, no, I know I can do it. I know I can help. And I think stepping into that and owning that, and that's really beautiful and powerful. But I think most of us are like, yeah, no, I can't do that.
Yeah. And if, in fairness, for me, the ones that I was looking at the time that would give me the credit, when I was a startup who had quit her job without a plan, budget was, a thing. I was like, I can't pay $5,000 for that, right? And when I look at it, and I'm pretty humble and self-reflective, this was like the big thing. Like, I was always a coach. So all the things I knew how to do, and I was confident. I'm like, I know how to do all that. Like, I don't have to actually go learn how to do that. I'd gotten that through my 20 years corporate experience, and then just all my spiritual studies, though they weren't specific coaching certifications, but
just building the foundation.
I felt confident and comfortable too that I actually had what they were giving as well.
And was there like this aha moment where you're like, wait, I can do that? Like, I can do that for...
I don't remember the specific moment, but yes, I mean, there was. And it was just like looking at it. So the way I fell into it, I don't know if I told you this. So my first big idea of what I thought, like what was on the vision board, I laugh at it now, but it's just like back on, what we were talking about earlier. I'm like, just hold the frequency, and I swear to God, then the universe will play with you. My frequency, joy, and excitement was around bringing purpose to companies. That was my first thing. I mean, it was called Consciousness Economy. I had even the trademark. Like, this is how far I went. This is what I was doing 2016, 2017, going into it. And I was speaking at a big ad conference about purpose and companies. And literally, like, a woman came up to me and she said, do you ever think about coaching people on purpose? And it was like light bulbs. So like, I was in the dance with the universe, I will say it was
an
already
angel in the audience who came up to you.
Yeah. It was already feeling a bit heavy because it was feeling like, same game, different rapper, which it was. But I was in it. So that's how it came to be.
That's amazing though, following the guidance, and like each stone on the path leads you to your greater purpose and where you're supposed to be going.
Because it's the resonance. It's the resonance and a surrendered approach. So it's that's how you play in the field of creation with the universe. Not trying to control it all. Not like,
Yeah.
Yep. I can muscle my way through it. I can plan it and execute it and do all the things. And
Yeah. Get some kind of vision, get excited about it, and just, be in the co-creative energy with the universe about it, and it will come.
Can I ask you more question really quickly? Yeah. Because the word that keeps coming in, and maybe this is to do with my block, and it's probably quite common with women, is around perfection. But I'm seeking the perfection. If I can't do this perfectly, can I even do it? Is that something you find that's quite a common block?
Yeah, I mean, with a lot, I call it like type A women, right? And here's the thing. The thing that is your purpose, which you have the most resistance towards, the most ego resistance towards. So the thing that you want the most, or that you're the most excited about, that the most fear-based stories come in, oh, you can't do it, oh, you won't be good enough, oh, you're too young, you're too old, oh, it's not. The thing that the ego's loudest about, the ego only gets loud about your true highest soul purpose, because that's kind of its job. That's what it thinks it needs to keep you safe from, the thing that's most connected to your soul. So what I often say is like, oh, that's a great sign. That means it's really your purpose. Now you've got to like walk through that fear. And that is the embodiment on it. It's like, you got to feel the fear and do it anyway. That's where I call the book Dare to Believe for a reason. That's when you've got to believe the truth in your heart more than the fear-based stories of your mind. So getting clear on what those stories are, and choosing to like reprogram them or rewrite them or choose differently to walk through it. The other thing too, what I'll say for you, anything that's so deeply rooted like that, digging up the roots of where that need to be perfect comes from, where did that come from, and healing that, it's like, okay, so I went through this as a kid and it was the one thing I could control. I could be the perfect student. So it's also really looking at what deep healing is going on there or might be required.
Yeah, right. So digging to the roots of our fears and going there and healing there is that kind of starting point.
Yeah. Because it's what remains vague or hidden retains its power. So it's like, it is really understanding like where truly at the deepest is this perfectionism coming from, and is the shadow work, being willing to really like look at it, see it, heal it. So for me, like every day in like the first years of my journey, like my voice of fear, my ego would be like, go get a job. You're going to fail at what? I mean, I hardly like had a business or an idea, but it was so loud that like so many times I'd almost go get a job. But I had the understanding at this point that the spiritual journey and the journey that would lead to your highest purpose, your highest destiny, was to believe the heart more than the fear in your mind. So if I could identify, even if that fear felt real, logical, false evidence appearing real, the acronym. If I could identify it was coming from fear, then I'd sit there and I'd go, no, this is fear, so it's a liar. Fear always lies. It's not telling me the truth. It feels believable. It feels real, but I'm going to choose not to believe it. I'm going to believe what this is saying instead. And it would be so hard. It was like the battle of the ego. When you're in the battle with the ego, you're in a really good place.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
I love that. So as we think about wrapping up, I love to ask if there's something practical, because I love practical advice that someone outside of definitely listening to the podcast, reading the book, all those things. What's something that you would say is a small thing that someone could do today if they were like, okay, this resonated so much. How do I start? What's one thing that I could do?
With a purpose journey? Mm-hmm. I would say start getting curious about what you love. An exercise that I always have my clients do is like become the curious detective about you. Like use the notes app in your phone and start making little notes of anything that sparks you, anything that you have resonance, and just start like capturing it, getting used to asking the question to your heart, what do I love? What do I want? Like the more you ask it, the more is revealed. The reason that so many of us don't know, because we weren't actually taught to ask the question in a concerted way. Again, we're told it as kids and then it all goes away. So just getting in that practice of what do I love? What do I want? And like consciously, consistently asking it and taking note, I think can do wonders for you on your purpose journey.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I want to do
advice.
that. I feel like I want to set an alarm that says, what do you love? Yeah. I have so many. I mean, it's ridiculous how much my phone goes off now with alarms, to the point that I have to be really mindful, because if I look at like a meeting that I'm in, I'm like, yep, there's going to be 2 alarms that go off here. So prompt. So I'm going to have to figure out where I could add this in. But even having a prompt, even if it's like, starting your day, like I start my day with my gratitude practice and, writing, because I want to write. But even, having that prompt to, even for a moment, like, what do I love? Like, we don't ask ourselves that.
Yeah. Or what do you want today? Even that too. Like, what do I want? Ooh. What do I want today?
Ooh, I definitely don't ask myself that. Yeah. Other than giving into some like craving of like, okay, I want a really good coffee or something like that. But
right.
Like, bigger picture.
I want peace today. I want to experience, like we're so in the shoulds, right? Instead, like, what do I truly want today? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful practice. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. It's been so wonderful to learn more about the community you've created and just the practice and discovering your purpose and all these things. So I know it's going to resonate with so many. So I'm so grateful and thank you. And we'll share all the places people can find you, website, podcast, your book. It sounds like the retreat's like probably going to be sold out by the time this comes out. So maybe thinking forward to 2026's retreat, but thank you again. So grateful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to be with you both.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your precious day to listen to our podcast. If this episode resonated with you, we would love for you to share it with someone you love. That would mean the world to us. Also, if you feel called, please follow our show so you will know when a new episode drops. If you want to go one step further, you can even rate this episode, as it allows our podcast to find its way to others. Lastly, we've done our best to share resources that you might find helpful in the show notes, whether that's a book recommendation or a website we referenced during the episode, a free resource, or more information on a guest who took their time to speak with us and share their knowledge. We would love for you to support their work too. You can find more information on our podcast website at becomingspiritual.me. We love you and can't wait for you to hear the next episode. Until then, know you have a place where you are welcome and you are loved. Welcome home.